Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Roddy John, and today we talk to Ervin with Prosecco Zero. Prosecco Zero has zero sugar and is delicious. So you will find all about Prosecco Zero, but we also talk about the zero tequila that they have as well. It was sold out when we recorded online. I believe they have checked out more and brought more in, so definitely go over and check all that out. But again, you'll hear all about that in this interview. So before we get to the interview, I do need to give you a little bit of a backstory. During this interview, I had a local police officer pull up behind me, and there was some quote-unquote suspicious activity with me going over and stopping for 30 to 45 minutes in this neighborhood that I was also working in. So they were just checking and being good citizens. I thought about editing it out of this interview, but I did not, because it is just too funny, and it's all in there. And so Ervin was so nice, and he even said he was going to bail me out in case I needed it, but luckily I did not even a ticket. So thank you to that local police department. I will not give you the city name, but if you know me, you know where I was. So, but before we get to Ervin with Prosecco Zero, make sure to sign up for our newsletter so you get to find out even more about our guests, what's going on with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. And you also get some fun facts. So definitely make sure to go sign up for our newsletter. So without further ado, here is Ervin with Prosecco Zero. I would like to welcome to the show Ervin with Prosecco Zero. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of yours, actually. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm a fan of what you were doing, and I actually have a background. I was in the wine industry for 14 years, so I've seen a lot of products come and go, and I've seen the rise of Prosecco, and I actually always recommended Prosecco over champagne for a lot of people in general, or well, a lot of people in America don't realize that most quote-unquote champagnes they're drinking are sparkling wine. It's not really champagne, but also there's that thing of people don't know the difference really between sparkling wine, champagne, Prosecco, even a cava. Could you explain to some people who aren't very wine knowledgeable about what a Prosecco actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. Prosecco is the sparkling answer to champagne from Italy, basically. And it is an incredible area that comes from the oldest part of soil out of all of Europe, really. So it has this incredible freshness to it. It can only come from two different towns, Trieste or Treviso, and it has to be made in Italy. The main grape that you use to make Prosecco is called Glera, which is an ancient grape from Italy. It only grows in Italy. And it's a very refreshing, uncomplicated sparkling wine. I would say that the main differences between champagne and Prosecco is the grapes that you use to make them, the price, and the method that you use to produce them.
Right. Now, how did Prosecco Zero start?
Well, Prosecco Zero started because I used to hate Prosecco. It's a bittersweet question because it brings me back to those days when I hated Prosecco with passion. So I'm a sommelier, and I started my career in South Florida as a sommelier. I studied enology in Italy, and then I studied biochemistry. So I was really involved with wine, and the reason why I didn't like Prosecco was because inherently Prosecco is a faulty product. Prosecco comes as an answer to very poor weather conditions. And when you're growing this grape called Glera, this grape tends to be very bitter. It has this polyphenol called bitter phenolics. And basically when you're harvesting this grape, it was like a lemon tart sort of thing, right? So you needed to add some sugar to try and offset that bitterness. So through my history and my career as a sommelier, I would actually avoid tasting Prosecco for many reasons. One of them was because I felt they were too sweet. Secondly, because I can identify the issues of sugar into your body. And thirdly, because they were just uncomplicated wines that I didn't appreciate as a sommelier, basically. So when I traveled to Italy, I studied with a very, very popular large winery in the Treviso area in how to make Prosecco. And I kept asking them questions like, hey, man, why are you harvesting right now? The grape is obviously not ready. And the answer I kept getting was because that's just what we do. Because, that's just how you make Prosecco. This is just how our winery does it. And it was funny because like this Italian mentality, right, that basically you want to keep things intact because of history. It's perfect. I mean, I think that there's a lot to say about that. But I also think that something magical happens when you can put an incredible winemaking history with innovation. So I decided to make a Prosecco that I feel it's what the leading brands should be. And I made a Prosecco without sugar, basically. It's in short what my goal was. But it's interesting because what I was trying to accomplish was the best flavor profile that the grape Glera can expose. And it just so happens that was without adding sugar.
Interesting. It is also very interesting that you always avoided that wine and that grape in general, and then now full circle, that's your life. It's a little funny how the world works in that way.
That is hilarious because there is a saying my dad used to say. He used to say, whoever doesn't like soup should get 5 bowls of soup, right? And that's kind of what happened to me, like what I never in a million years I would have thought I was going to make Prosecco. It's literally all I breathe, eat, and drink is Prosecco. So.
Now, it is interesting also. Oh, go ahead.
A blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always, well, in a sense, like there's so many times the girl is the one that you're like, no, I don't want that one, keep that one away. And then years later, that's your wife. It's like, oh, okay, well then that's how the world is supposed to work.
That's funny, yeah.
And it is interesting that there are so many things in the world that people don't change because of history that, nope, this is the way it's always been. Why would we change it? Versus this is the way it's going to be. But then there's always someone like you that is asking that question. I get that, but why are we doing it that way? And I love that you did that, and now we have a Prosecco that is zero sugar, and I imagine the taste profile is just as comparison, if not better, than Prosecco.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say that one of the things I've learned in the last few years is that we as consumers, right? We're all consumers, and we as consumers just kind of get used to what things are, right? And really the big shift in my mentality was, what if we can do it better? Like, what's it stopping us from us identifying something that it might be good, but it could be better? So what can we do to make it better? And could that person be me, right? And it's a funny thing because the best companies in the world probably never saw an inception. It's great ideas, it just never happened. And it's a very powerful thing to feel when you think that you could probably start a company and you never gave that first step, and then a great idea might have died, right? So that's kind of my biggest fear, which is why I continue to produce high quality products. But I would also say that, I've been a wine judge for now 8 years. And one of the biggest things for me was blind tasting wine. So every time we produce these things, we ensure that the quality does not take risk on the message of health and wellness. Because remember, we wanted to make the best Prosecco in the world. It just so happens that the best way to make it was zero sugar. And obviously that turned into a marketing cornucopia. But what we were seeking really wasn't necessarily a zero sugar wine, was the best quality Prosecco you can make. So to answer the question of quality versus flavor versus health and wellness, I would say that we check every single box because we actually get 96 points from a magazine that has never rated any Prosecco over 85 points. And I'm not saying you should defer just to points as a rating system, but Prosecco Zero is the fastest growing Prosecco in South Florida right now.
That's crazy. No, I was going to say that South Florida is a lot of people don't think about it, but South Florida, there's so many people going through there on a regular basis. So many people that do live there and have so much money that they do actually go out and buy, big expensive wines and they celebrate on a regular basis because, I mean, if you lived in Florida, I'd be celebrating too. That weather is fantastic. It might rain like for an hour or two during the day, but then it goes right by. Yeah, you got to deal with hurricanes sometime, but the weather is a regularly fantastic weather. So why wouldn't you go out and just be celebrating on a regular basis as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think our Prosecco it's definitely very inherently tropical in terms that, tropical areas benefits greatly from Prosecco Zero. Obviously, I mean, a zero sugar wine it's great for many different reasons, but it's interesting how as we're activating different regions, I mean, we're now in Canada with tap beverages. We're now in Mexico. We're in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. Again, remember, I mean, we just started a year and a half ago. So we're now in 5 different countries. We're activating other states, including Texas, actually. Prosecco Zero, I think, has a very interesting message in that you're adjusting the way you feel the following morning. So not only are you celebrating and you're continuing to do the social experiences that we all enjoy, which is, sharing a glass of wine with a friend or maybe a bottle of wine. But you don't have to worry in the morning about what these things are doing to your body, because what happens is the reason why you get hangovers is because your body basically is not resting overnight. You're continuing to process all these complicated carbohydrates. So you think you're sleeping, but your body's working. Your liver continues to work, decomposing all these carbs. But when you have uncomplicated carbs, your body rests much better, and you don't dehydrate that much because Prosecco inherently has a lower alcohol. So it's 11.5 versus, say, some cabs that are like 16%. And so a bottle of Prosecco Zero only has 11.5 alcohol, which is normal, standard for Prosecco. But it doesn't have the added carbs that basically make your body be tired all throughout the night. And I wake up every single morning to train, and I wake up 4:35 in the morning every single day. And believe you me, I drink a lot of Prosecco.
And like you said, you're not feeling it because there's no sugar in it, which is I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think a lot of people think about why the science behind the hangover, and that's exactly what it is your body is still processing everything overnight, and in the morning, that's why sometimes people still wake up and they feel drunk, or, the hangover kicks in. It's like, well, all that sugar from the night before is still going through your system right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful thing. I mean, not only that, but the dehydration levels of we call an alkaloid in the chemist where you call an alkaloid anything that ends in the OH molecule. So these are bindable molecules that basically are absorbing water from your body. And it's interesting because if you can produce a Prosecco or a product that it's better for you, in terms of that hangover residues and how you're going to feel in the morning, but also taste better. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone, really. I think that Prosecco really is disrupting the market in that we're revamping how you view sparkling wines. Historically, sparkling wines would always give you a headache